Okay, it's great to be back. And with me today, I'm having a very important discussion with a very interesting person. You know, one of the very vocal South Africans I know, and that is Solly Moeng. I know him as a columnist for News 24. He can tell us what more he does outside of that, because he's a very busy man. I don't think he's only committed to writing for News 24. He does other things as well. Solly, what else do you do other than writing your great column?
Hi, Phumlani. I'm so happy, so delighted to be here today
Yeah,
with you. Thanks for inviting me. I do a lot of things, as you say. The other thing that's big that I do is hosting the Africa Brand Summit, which I founded and have been convening since we just founded in late 2016, and it was incubated for the first 2 years as a South Africa Brand Summit focused on South Africa. And the aim of it is really to look at, those things that inform negative perceptions about destinations, about South Africa, about Africa. You know, what are the negative things and what informs those negative things? How do we change them over time? And what are the positive things? How do we celebrate and enhance the positive things over time? So it's not just looking at the bad things, it looks at the good things as well. I also give advice to brands, all sorts of brands, people brands, organizational brand, corporate brands on
yeah,
reputation management, on how best to manage corporate
yeah,
or brand reputation, and really how to integrate and in a world where there's so much competition, so much media, social media, people are always looking at you. Big Brother is all over the place. You can't
yeah,
lie. It's not good to lie anyway if you
yes,
care
yes,
about
yeah,
reputation. So I really care about brand reputation a lot.
yeah, yeah. I've seen
And
your
I teach, and I also teach. I
oh,
also am a lecturer on the online campus of the EU Business School,
wow,
which
that's
has,
great.
yeah, they have campuses in Munich and Monterrey, Geneva, and Barcelona. But because of COVID, they also established an online campus. So my students come from literally all over the world.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. So you're a global man.
I
Yeah.
think I am. Yes, I should.
Yeah, you are. You are. Yes. So, Solly, I want us to get down to the conversation today. Um, we will shoot straight to it because I've known you for years now. I think it's almost about 4 years I've known you because you've invited me to your very remarkable, great events, the Africa Brand Summit events. I've been a participant a few times there, and you
You're part
understand.
of the family, and I love you to bits. I like your independent spirit.
Yes, and my
we
courage.
need more Phumlani Majozis out there.
Yes, more African Phumlani Majozis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my question is, when you look at Africa, um, many countries in Africa, they got their independence in 1960s, early 60s, right? When you look at our history, in fact, most in the sub-Saharan Africa got
Right.
independence in early 60s. Uh, Part of what has been said is that what changed in Africa was just the color of the oppressor, right? So when independence came, what happened is that we slipped into dictatorships where we had black leaders who were oppressive, not allowing for political reform, not allowing for openness. Uh, and that has been a concern about Africa over the past decades of its independence.
Right.
My question is, what went wrong when we got that independence? When our countries got that independence solely?
I think what went wrong is that we were too blind when we gave all the trust and the power in South Africa to the African National Congress. We all loved the ANC. I loved the ANC. When I remember the first time I saw those controversies where people march at the FNB Stadium when Mandela came to speak for the first time. They didn't march correctly, but I didn't care about that. I just felt so safe when I saw controversies. Yes, those, SADF people are not going to come into my father's house in typical Soweto and mess us up anymore because they used to do that. So we trusted the ANC, and everybody did, including the NGOs. And this is a sad thing: NGOs, which we used to work in communities around the country, delivering social, services, which cared about social justice and that sort of thing, decided, you know what, we don't need to be here anymore. Now we have a government by the people for the people. But the government by the people for the people is no longer there. Over time, it got too used to power got to their heads. And you must remember that African people, because of colonialism, a history of pain, they've been battered into submission. But we are now even submitting to the ANC. We're submitting to people who look like us. We don't question them. It is a two-way street. I think Africans need to stand up and say, but what do we really want for ourselves? Not just in South Africa, across the continent. We need a strong, active, participatory, informed African civil service that looks at these people who are in power across the continent to say, no, you can't do that. Even Kagame, they must tell him that, because human rights do matter, women's rights do matter, children's rights do matter, environmental rights do matter. But we are also victims of these archaic African cultures and traditions and norms. That's say you must respect the big man. We must just dance when he comes along and be happy with him when he throws sweeties at you. We need to liberate ourselves from that. We need to look these guys in the eyes and say, stop it, this far, not further. Because the ANC is too used to being in control. The ANC thinks that it must be in power forever in South Africa, like the Chinese Communist Party in China. It shouldn't. We must stop it, because this is not the democracy we signed up for. They failed. The South Africans must wake up. And the IEC must be watched, because the IEC is filled by people who are deployed by the ANC, who are also hoping to be deployed to other big ventures after they leave the IEC. So it's up to us to say it's enough. The ANC, thank you very much, goodbye. People must stop saying, oh, but if they go, who else is going to come? It's like you're living with this very abusive partner, and you're constantly afraid that if he leaves you, nobody else is going to love you. It's nonsense. It must stop.
I've listened to you, I've seen you speaking a few times, giving a speech. I've seen you giving a speech a few times. And what I have picked up in your previous speeches, and what I pick up now listening to you, is that you are saying Africans need to take charge, that we cannot blame other countries, we cannot blame other civilizations, we cannot keep on saying it's colonialism, right? It's apartheid in South Africa, it's the worst, it's the Chinese that are coming here to abuse, colonize us, whatever terms that we use. You are saying that we need to take charge, we as Africans, that we should stop playing victims. I mean, that's what you've been preaching over the past years.
Yes. I think that the biggest problem of us Africans is it's so easy to be a victim. It's so easy not to take responsibility. It's so easy to point fingers elsewhere, because you don't have to take responsibility, right? We need to get out of that. We are prisoners of our own mindset. We need to say to ourselves, bad things happened in the past. The things we are not the only people who've gone through pain. If you look at the history of mankind, you look at in Europe, I mean, those Ukrainians who came in Israel, Palestine, in Armenia. So pain. We think that we are the only people who've been pained through slavery. No, there's been terrible things. The war of religions. Go and speak to the people in Armenia today and ask them what the Turkey did for them to them. Okay, so we need to take responsibility. We need to say, you know what, we've been pained. Of course, nobody can deny that. Of course, we've been pained. It's been bad. But we can't expect to be playing victims. These European countries, to the so-called West, that we keep going to say, you guys did some bad things to us in the past, give us more money, help us, it's your responsibility. Most of them are headed by presidents and prime ministers who were born after the Second World War. Some of them are in their 40s. And these guys are looking at us and say, what's going on with these people? I mean,
Yeah.
We are constantly victims. We're not, even with the COVID era, yeah, the world is taking all the COVID medicines for itself, the vaccines. Ah, we Africans, please give us more stuff. But we don't talk about the money that's been stolen by our own people, the people who look like us. All right? We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the
Yeah.
billions, the trillions that were stolen by the ANC. Or thanks to the ANC. We don't talk about the fact that the ANC, even at the height of state capture, when all the information was out there about what Jacob Zuma and his parties were doing, thanks to the ANC, they defended him. They had many, many opportunities, almost a dozen opportunities to get rid of this man. They didn't. Gwede Mantashe, when the bank said, look, we can't touch the Guptas anymore, he, as Secretary General of the African National Congress, went to see the banks to say, come on, open the Gupta bank accounts anymore. Look at Mzwanyele
Yeah.
Manye,
Yeah.
okay, defending the indefensible. All of these people continue to pretend that we are victims. Jacob Zuma, oh no, the constitution is too Western. No,
And it's all black
Africans
people
must,
like
yeah,
us, you and I.
we must
Africans.
decide what we want to be known for, what we want to be associated with. We have to take the responsibility. And until we start saying, looking into the mirror as Africans across the board and saying, and see, and accepting, acknowledging what we see, then we can't change. We're going to continue saying, well, you know what, we don't have to do anything. All these problems that we have, they are not our problems. The white people started it. The West started it. Colonialism, apartheid. I'm sorry, it's not true. We need to get up.
Mm.
We need to stand
Now,
up. And
just
we need to stop those politicians who thrive on playing the victim, on blaming the past for stuff that we Africans we can change. Because we have the ability. I know of awesome Africans in the diaspora who do awesome things, but they will not come to Africa to work there. They don't want to come to Africa because Africa is harsh for Africans. Africans who are striving, who are intelligent, who are doing awesome things in the world. Because a lot of times it's the black people who are doing bad things to black people. We need to stop this.
yeah, yeah. Now I want just briefly so I can move on to another segment.
Okay.
People say, you know, what people argue, what some people argue, Solly, is that, well, you still have, they make a claim, I can call it a claim, they make a claim that you still have countries like France, right, being involved in, still very much involved in the countries that they used to colonize, right?
Right. Right.
In terms of business operations, they argue that France really hasn't they have not let go of their former colonies in Africa, that they are still in control. And another element in that argument, people say, well, you know, these dictators, these despots, that we have seen in Africa over the past decades, they were funded by the West. The West was funding, is helping these dictators to thrive and survive. What is your response to comments like that?
Okay. Look, I've never heard of any contemporary African president or prime minister standing up to say, France is making us do this. We don't want to do it. They must get out of our country. If you know of one, please tell me. Okay. I do not know. I don't think that France is in any African country without the invitation of that country. We can say the same thing about China. So people say, yeah, France is doing this. It's playing victim again. Yeah, we can't do this because France is controlling us. Excuse me. If I were president of that country, I would say, wait a minute, my fellow Africans, look at what France is doing. I want them out of my country. No, they're not. So these African despots, many of whom have been in power for 30 years, for almost 40 years, they rely on they give something which belongs not to them but to their people, to countries like France perhaps and others, in exchange for their own protection. Okay, so Africans must stand up and say, this is not what we want. And those presidents, if we have countries in Africa that feel that they're being controlled by the West, they must stand up and tell us, the rest of us, and say, we don't want what is being imposed. We don't hear that. We just hear rumors that France is controlling people. Well, France has got armies there. We've never heard any country in Africa saying, France must leave our territory. It must take off its armies out of there. Because those armies from France are there at the invitation of the head of state, who's been there for years, and they got their government. But there are people who are not protesting to say France must leave. So please stop. This is another very good example of Africans playing victim. We must, once African, I don't, you know what, if there were a country in Africa where the people and the president or the country, the president, sorry, the government would stand up to say, we are being besieged, we are being occupied by France. I think France would be really pressured to stay out, to leave that country. But I don't know
International
of
community.
any country
Yeah.
where that's the case. So we must stop this nonsense of not accepting the acknowledging that we are responsible for this. China is doing the same thing. China is getting into all of these countries because they are broke. They're getting free money from China. And their conditions, China, no money comes to you without conditions. We don't know what the conditions are. Okay, we're going to give you money, buddy, and this is what you're going to do for us. This is what we want in return. And those people will stay in power for as long as they have. They accept those conditions. They don't care about the plight of their people. You know, they sell off. Most of these countries have been sold off to China, to maybe to France, to other foreign countries by the people who lead them. It's like the whole thing about slavery. Nobody wants to have a conversation about, well, with some of these slaves stole by the Indunas, by the African chiefs. Nobody wants to have that conversation. So we live in a world of lies because we choose the lies that are convenient to us. But the thing is, when you have an illness and you keep misdiagnosing it, you're going to keep trying the wrong medication for the illness. Acknowledge the illness first. If you have a cancer of the prostate, say, I have a cancer of the prostate, and then you will get appropriate medication for it. But if you call it a cancer of something else, because you don't want to call it a cancer of the prostate, you're not going to deal with it because you're going to be putting the wrong medication for it. That's the problem with Africa.
Yeah. Now, this is a question that has been, many people have tried to answer this question. Books have been written about it.
Sorry, I made it. Your other question was about France, and there was another part of it. I don't want to be accused of not answering the question entirely.
What did I ask you? Okay, it's fine. Let's leave. We're going to come back there.
Okay.
I want to talk about the answer you gave was a response to that question as well. I want to talk about the question that has been asked many, many times, and people have tried to answer it. Some people have even they've written books to try to answer the question, and that is, why is Africa poor? Right? In your, as Solly Moeng, you are a commentator. You watch South Africa closely, but you have a view and an opinion as to why Africa is poor. Why are we so? I mean, I think you and I, we once had at one point where we were just chatting that, you know, when you look at South Africa in comparison to other countries in Africa, DR Congo, you know, Gabon, you can go on, you know, Cameroon, Leon. South Africa is better in terms of infrastructure. The infrastructure and the economy and you know, things are much better. Much better here. But the question is, why is most of sub-Saharan Africa so poor and destitute? What's the problem?
Well, a lot of the infrastructure that we're boasting about in Africa was created during apartheid. Okay, and we can make all the noise about, yeah, but the labor force was poor black people, but it was conceptualized by white people. I too had difficulties coming to that acknowledgement for a long time. I said, yeah, we are better, we have the best infrastructure, the best roads. But the truth is, a lot of these SOEs that have been destroyed by the ANC were developed not by the ANC. They were developed during apartheid. Face it, okay? It's what it is. We mess things up.
During apartheid?
Sorry?
Were they working better?
No, ESCOM to work. No, but the difficulty during apartheid is that they only served a portion of the population. That was the biggest problem. They didn't serve all of the people of South Africa, and that was a problem. But they did work. The hospitals worked, okay? The roads were good. The ESCOM worked, and all of those institutions. So we came in, and we just, I don't like to use the word Africanized because it's not the right way, but there's another South African, Prince Mashele, wrote an article not too long ago saying, well, you guys have been dreaming all along. What is happening to South Africa is who we are. This is the real, we are coming back to Africa. It's a painful article he wrote. It made the rounds quite a lot. I think that we South Africans, look, we have the opportunity. We had a good start, okay? we had a good start with good institutions. Okay, of course, some of the democratic institutions, of course, most of them, but especially the Chapter 9 institutions, of course, they are post-apartheid institutions. But the thing is, when you have good institutions, SO, whatever they are, democratic institutions, institutions of democracy, SOEs, etc., and you put the right people to head those institutions up, they will do the right job. If you give me, Solly Moeng, today a helicopter to fly, I'm going to crash it because I've never been trained how to fly a helicopter. You can't say, you know what, I like Solly, I'm going to give him that helicopter to fly. But that's what the ANC has been doing. It's been putting all the wrong people, all the wrong comrades in places where you need specialized expertise and experience to do the work. And that's where we are at right now. So South Africa had an opportunity, and so we must just stop this nonsense of saying we're not going to employ Piet van der Merwe because he's white. But if Piet van der Merwe is the right guy to do the job, he's South African, why not give him the job? Why do you have to go to Cuba to get people to come and solve our water problems when we have the people who develop the infrastructures here, right here? You don't want to choose them because they're white. It's racism. Whether, I hate this thing that black people can be racist. Black people can be racist. Black people can be racist. All human beings can be racist. And there is reverse racism in South Africa. Call it what you want, the race is racism. But the minute you start saying to a white South African child, you can't get into that room because you're white, you're being racist. Okay? Full stop. There's nothing else to call it. So racism by black people exists. Okay? Don't tell me that you have to be rich and you have to be powerful. No. I know black people who are racist, and we need to stop it. We can't solve the problems of South Africa by repeating history, and that's what we're doing under the ANC.
Yeah. Now, you've been quite critical of Paul Kagame of Rwanda. You have been you've said he's a human rights, he doesn't handle human rights right, human rights abuser. I met a friend 2 weeks back, I think, 2 weeks back, and we were just chatting about African politics, and he says to me, Paul Kagame he's been reforming his country for the better when you look at where they were 25 years ago. And there have been many comments, Solly, about Paul Kagame. There have been praises, if I should, be honest. People saying the guy, yes, there is no political reform, but the guy has tried to improve. There is much improvement in his country compared to where it was 25 years ago. Our former finance minister, Tito Mboweni, he liked the idea of Kigali this, Kigali that. I want to go.
You're funny. Tito Mboweni is not an authority on this, but anyway, okay.
So I mean, there is that view that this guy he's been reforming his country for the better, and you are critical of him. Tell me more about that.
Rwanda, contemporary Rwanda, is a country of 2 stories. Okay. And the problem is that people choose which story they want to side with.
Yeah.
The one story is the one you've just described. Kagame is a president who's spending a lot of money modernizing Kigali. When you go to Rwanda, if you want to open a business there, you'll get almost instant government support, the visa-free, or you get easy visa, the infrastructure, women are being empowered, etc., etc. That is a true story. Okay, I'm not lying. It's a true story. But the other part of the story is somebody like me. If I lived in Rwanda, I'd probably be dead long ago. Okay, because I'm outspoken, or I would be in prison. So at my office in Claremont, Cape Town, at the outside, there's one of the car guards that is a judge who came from Rwanda. Okay, this guy fled one day just before COVID-19. When somebody said it's your time, because he ruled in a case when government told him you're going to rule this way, he ruled the other way because that's what his conscience and the law told him. Okay, and then he was haunted. I've been helping this guy. Okay, from human to human. I've seen the pictures of his house. He's had to pay human traffickers to get his wife and 2 little boys, 6 and 5 and 7. To come to South Africa. They went through different countries and he told me the story. He's not the only one. So the thing is, Kagame is a benevolent dictator. But the things I don't hate, I don't like the term benevolent dictator. What benevolent dictator? Because what it is, a dictator is a dictator is a dictator. What we have in South Africa under the ANC so far, fortunately, is that we are still able to express ourselves. Okay, I can say Ramaphosa is a schmuck. I won't be arrested the next day. Go to Rwanda and say Kagame is a schmuck and see what happens to you. So, do you want to live in a country where you are afraid? I've got Rwandan friends. Okay, some of them live in America, in Canada, here where I am now. I'm in Switzerland. Some of them live here in Switzerland. They are afraid of Kagame. Okay, they are afraid of what that man is capable of. That man has changed constitution 3 times because he believes he's the only person who can do the job. Any president anywhere in the world who thinks nobody else can do the job, they must change the constitution to stay in power, is a dangerous man or a dangerous woman. So Kagame has changed the constitution. Kagame doesn't think anybody else should be running Rwanda. Kagame, if you go to Rwanda and the term human rights don't mean anything for Kagame. So he can build all the nice bridges and give you visas, welcome you to Rwanda and do all those nice things, but he doesn't stand criticism. He thinks he's the only thing God created for man, for Rwanda. I'm sorry. Bridges alone and visas and business opportunities are not enough when people are not able to express themselves. I've got friends who live in Rwanda. They are even afraid to discuss politics on LinkedIn because they think they are watched. I've got people who've told me that students from Rwanda who study in places like to spy. I know two people in Cape Town who were assassinated by one Kagame's international killing squad. So I'm sorry, okay? I'm happy to. So you can't have a frank conversation about Rwanda if you don't have the two sides. You need to talk about human rights, but you can talk about all those beautiful bridges and visas and whatever. But it can't be one of the two stories alone is not enough. You have to have the complete story about Rwanda.
Yeah. Now, those are very powerful comments, Solly. Now, you've just told me that you are in Switzerland. You've been there for some time now. You know the country very well because I think you've been there for, for a long time.
Since I was 18 years old, I've been coming here.
I mean, since you were way before I was born. So, I mean, what's the difference between Switzerland, where you are? You've lived in South Africa you are South African. You know the challenges we face as a country, from crime, to corruption, to infrastructure, and so on and so on, the potholes that we have in our cities. What's the difference? The daily life that you live in Switzerland, how is it different from how you live in South Africa?
I've lived in different parts of the world. I've had the fortune. I've lived in the USA. I've lived in Canada. I've lived in France. I had never lived in in Switzerland. I've always had short visits. And I studied actually in a town called Besançon, which is right across the border from Switzerland. So I used to come here quite a lot as a student. So I've just come here a few weeks ago because I wanted to run away from the toxicity of South Africa. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, which is linked to stress. So apparently South Africa is stressing me. So I thought, look, if I stay here, I might wake up one day with a stroke or a heart attack, and I don't want any of that to happen to me. So I'm going to extract myself from South Africa just for a period. And here, and to answer your question, because I've been in South Africa for many years. I left the US. I came to South Africa in 2004. After the last time I had lived anywhere for a long time was, and I'm still used to locking everything. I brought my bike. Say, I like to cycle, so I have my bikes. I flew here with my bike, and I lock it at night. My friend said, "Oh, dude, you don't have to lock your bike. Just leave it there." So no, I don't want to lock my bike. You never know when a friend of mine who's Muslim said to me, believe in Allah, but tie your camels at night. So you never know when it's going to happen. So I'm sitting in this house here. I don't have to lock the doors. It's safe in the streets. I sometimes I walk at night, or I take my bike to the little bar across the road, not across the road, down the town, and I see young women walking at night on their own. They are safe. They can't do that in South Africa. I have a daughter. She's 17 years old. I'm fearful of her growing up in South Africa. It's terrible. Levels of GBV in South Africa are terrible. And the things in South Africa, and the pain about South Africa, is that people still justify those things. People will say, yeah, it's Europe there, of course. We are African, boom, 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 boom. No, we can be better. Africa can be modern and still be Africa. We don't have to be something else. We can still be African and be modern and throw away those old archaic cultural traditional things like ukutwala, to take young girls. Yeah, we don't have to say, yeah, because it's a culture. We don't have to cut people's penises with a knife that's dirty in the trees up there, whatever, because it's a culture. We need to modernize. We can still be African and modern. So where I am now, it's safe. I mean, I'm not stressed here. The truth is, I'm feeling okay in Switzerland, and I'm happy to be here for my heart. It's peaceful. I'm safe. I don't have to be worried. And here, people, when government officials commit wrong, they resign. They don't even have to wait to be fired. They resign. Once it hits the papers, and you've been found, boom, you go away. And the thing is, it doesn't happen often. Okay, it doesn't happen often because there are consequences. In South Africa, there are no consequences. I mean, I heard recently of the MEC in Limpopo who was accused of rape, of murder. He spent the night in prison. The next day after he was released, he wanted to go to the office. I mean,
that states, yeah.
So we Africans need to decide what we want to be known for. A lot of the bad things that get said about us, we deserve them. We deserve those things, those bad things, because we are authors of those things. It's not somebody else who's author of those things. We tolerate things that should not be tolerated anywhere, at all. And that's the problem with Africa. I believe it. I'm an African, and I'm a proud African, but I'm also a citizen of the world. Okay, I know of course, I'm fortunate because I've seen what is there outside of Africa. So I'm not stuck with the little, archaic ideas about what is there to be African. I'm African, but I'm also modern. I'm African, and I still want safety. I'm African, I still want my daughter to be able to walk in the city at 12 o'clock midnight without anybody telling him, you can't because you're a girl. No, she must do whatever she wants.
Solly, thank you so much, sir. I think we're out of time now. Our recording will stop at any second. Thank you so much for those powerful words. You are one of the most inspiring people I know.
Thank you.
And my wish is to learn French, and I think I need to keep my relationship with you strong because we're fluent French speakers. So
je parle français, je peux t'apprendre comme tu veux. Quand tu veux, tu n'as qu'à me dire quand on commencera les leçons, même virtuellement, even virtually, on va t'apprendre le français. Voilà, ça ouvre les portes. It opens doors.
Yeah, merci, monsieur.